Guys, I'm not being funny, but is this what it feels like? 3 games on the bounce. Manchester United have won 3 games in the Premier League under Ruben Amorim for the first ever time, scoring 4 goals. And I'm not gonna lie, those last 15 to 20 minutes, very, very nervy. But there's parts of today's performances that I'm so happy with. Some individual players that I'm so happy for. Brian Mbeumo getting 2 goals. Casemiro goal and assist. Aiden Heaven getting an assist. Luke Shaw getting an assist. And also Matheus Cunha finally getting his first goal for Manchester United in the Premier League. And coming into this game, I did say that this game would be as big, if not bigger, than the Liverpool game, because coming off of the Liverpool game, there was a high around the fan base. Everyone was gassed, everyone was excited. But I think this is the true bread and butter. You know, the teams that have our card over the last couple of seasons, how we perform against them. You know, the more mid-table teams, if you want to say that. No disrespect to Brighton. Now, actually, I want to start with, be sure to hit the like button, be sure to subscribe as well if you are new here. I want to start with actually not Manchester United, but actually Carlos Baleba. And I know a lot of us have spoken about Carlos Baleba during the summer. I was talking about him last season, in the summer as well. And I remember last season when we played Brighton in January, and I remember he gave away a penalty. And I remember saying at the time that, you know, I still saw some rashness in him. I still saw some rawness in him. And today, that was still on show. And at the time, back in January, I said it would be best for him to stay at Brighton for at least another season. Despite the rumours this summer, you know, I was gassed when Man United were linked to him. But I do think in hindsight now, he probably made the better of decisions. Both Brighton not selling him and him not trying to push for that transfer, because today he looked like a deer in headlights. Honestly speaking, he looked like he lost his number on that pitch today, whether it was in possession, out of possession. And let's be honest, he hasn't looked like that level of Carlos Baleba that we probably saw quite a bit last season. But I also said last season that he had that rawness in him, and I just haven't really seen that rawness get eliminated from his game personally. And today, him and Ayari coming into the game, I said, you know, if Ayari is darting forward, which we see him do quite a lot for Brighton, Man United could find themselves in a 2v1 battle in the midfield, and you know, they can come out on top. And I think, I'm not gonna lie, for the first half, up until Baleba was definitely taken off at like the 58th, 59th minute, I feel like Manchester United won that midfield battle, honestly speaking. And it's crazy to say that, because Man United, for me, the midfield, it's still kind of a growing and developing one. It's a game-by-game kind of situation. But I definitely think over the last couple of games, especially in the wins that Manchester United have had, you can see the midfield looking a lot comfortable there, especially with Casemiro and Bruno playing together. But I just wanted to touch on Carlos Baleba, because in hindsight, like I said, I think he might have made the right decision to stay out of the spotlight, stay away from a big club, because he's still not at that level of being at a big club yet. Will he be there? Yes, 100%, no doubt about it. I think his ceiling is high. I think his ability is high. I think his potential is high. But right now, there's too much rawness in his game that causes errors for the team. And it was causing some uncertainty for Brighton, in my opinion, both in and out of possession. But let's start with Manchester United. Let's go on to Manchester United, the main talking point for today. I am so happy with that front three. That performance from that front three, a goal involvement for every single one of them, a goal for Cunha, 2 goals for Brian Mbeumo, an assist for Sesko. And we're going to talk about Sesko as well, because he might not have got a goal, but I think he done so much for Manchester United in the attack. And the more Man United utilised him, I think the better we grew into our attacks and made use of our attacks. But let's start with, for me, Brian Mbeumo. Brian Mbeumo, both goals that he scored, firstly, amazing finishes. The qualities in those finish, I don't think there's a descriptive word or an adjective in the dictionary for me to describe the quality of those finishes. That first one, using the defender as a shield and dragging it back across the keeper. The keeper wasn't, I think, not gonna lie guys, even I thought when he cut into his left foot, I thought he was gonna go for that kind of curled shot, but he does that very well. And you know who does it similar, does that very well as well? It's a trademark Kylian Mbappe thing. I'm not saying they're the same, but I'm saying Kylian Mbappe is known for this, where he goes for those kind of strikes back across goal when people are probably expecting him to go for the far post. And I just think Brian Mbeumo, for me, wow, I'm really appreciative of Manchester United's recruitment this summer. If I'm being totally honest, the recruitment that Man United have done this summer, both in Lamens, Cunha, Sesko and Mbeumo, I don't think they've really been disappointing for me. And I know it's the kind of caliber of games that I can go off for each of them. There's not a lot, especially for Le Mans, but I'm still happy with it. And talking about Le Mans today, both goals, I think the first goal, it's a Danny Welbeck free kick. I mean, what? In 2012, but Danny Welbeck is just aging gracefully every single time. And I don't think Le Mans could do much there. I don't think that was the best of walls, if I'm being honest, because I think there was quite a little bit of a gap between the wall and where the keeper was stood. So I don't think the wall was fully covering the space that was vacated by the keeper. And I think Danny Welbeck did a phenomenal job putting it over the wall. He kind of bended it, it practically skidded off the roof of the net. I don't think Le Mans should really beat himself up for that. And then the second goal that Manchester United concede to Brighton from that set piece from Castulas, I just think it's poor defending. I just really think it's poor defending from the Manchester United outfield players. I think Xerxes is not paying attention. Nobody actually in Man United's box is really paying attention. It's a 5v1 because Brighton don't have that many guys at the front post in that particular moment, or even in that 6-yard area. It's predominantly Man United players, and I don't think anybody did their due diligence of telling Joshua Xerxes there's a man on your shoulder. But equally with saying that, he didn't check to see if there was a man on his shoulder, and Castulas just gets a free run to a header, runs in, gets the header off, and Le Mans tries to make a stop, but it just glides past him. If I put those factors aside, ball playing ability kind of beating the press from Brighton, especially in the first half, because I think Brighton were pressing quite heavily with Danny Welbeck, with Minter, with Ruta, with Kadioglu. They were pressing quite heavily on Man United's backline. I think he was quite comfortable in getting away from those presses. That's the first point. The second point is his claiming from crosses. And I know, guys, it's probably the bare minimum for any other football fan that supports any other team. But as Manchester United fans, we've been subjected to, I would say, a form of torture with our previous keepers when it comes to taking control of your box from set pieces, from corners in particular, from crosses, etc. And I think Le Mans actually made some great saves today, especially in the latter stages of the game. I think he made some really, really great saves. So when I'm talking about Man United's recruitment, I think today kind of shows you how well Man United's recruitment have done this summer, but also that recruitment, how they've embedded themselves into the team. I think today, especially up until that Danny Welbeck free kick, I felt like I saw a free-flowing kind of Manchester United attack. And you know what? Can I just say, shout out to Bruno Fernandes, his 300th appearance for Manchester United. He's got 100 goals and 84 assists in that time, which is a phenomenal return. Like, that is a return of dreams. Some people could only dream of having that kind of return for Manchester United. But can I just say that Manchester United, when everyone else in the attack is pulling their weight and is contributing, I think we rely less heavily on Bruno Fernandes, so I think he can play with a lot more freedom. I mean, just to mention Bruno Fernandes' IQ and his quality of his game, that Brian Mbeumo final goal, that fourth goal, the fact that he knows where Brian Mbeumo is making that run, he knows not to touch it, but he knows if he leaves it, he kind of leaves the pass to lay off the defender behind him is not going to expect it. And that is just pure, for me, footballing IQ. That kind of IQ can't be brought. And I know a lot of people have their opinions on Bruno Fernandes, but I personally think the more that these players, you know, the Cunhas and the Mbeumos and the Seskos and the Casemiros and, you know, everybody involved in that midfield and front line, the more everyone starts carrying their weight in build-up, in attack, you know, they start contributing like we saw today. I think it takes a lot of weight off of Bruno Fernandes' shoulders. And as a result, I think Bruno Fernandes won't really be the scapegoat anymore for fans. He will just simply be seen as a contributor. And today, for me, I think he did exactly that, despite the fact that he did not have any goal involvement. He still had a high level of touches, both in the game, in the opponent's box, successful dribbles, long balls, passes, barely dispossessed. I think he was only dispossessed once, won a lot of his ground duels, but equally so, I think he did the recovery side of stuff. And that is why I'm saying I like Bruno Fernandes. I'm kind of indifferent about him sometimes, but I definitely think that when you see the players carrying their weight, like we saw today, a player like Bruno Fernandes can shine without having that much pressure on him, because the pressure is kind of distributed amongst everyone. And that's what you want in a football team, in my opinion. You don't want anyone in in my opinion, to be the star of the team and have to carry the burden as well as the criticism. I don't think that's how football is. And for far too long, it's been like that at Manchester United, where, you know, Man United fans, as fans, we are guilty of loving a saviour and loving a scapegoat. And Bruno Fernandes has been that. But now, today, I think you see that Bruno Fernandes doesn't have to get a goal, doesn't have to get an assist, but he can contribute to the game. And it's kind of a performance that, for me, that will go under the radar for most fans. I think a lot of his performance today will go under the radar. But another guy that equally I was impressed with today is Uncle Casemiro. Listen, 60-minute football, 70-minute football of Casemiro a week, you're getting quality from him. You're getting quality from him. That goal that he set up for Cunha is just a well-read pass slipped in between two defenders who are in close proximity of each other, but still don't really stand a chance of getting that interception. And shout out to Cunha, because that is what I think he's been waiting for. That moment, you see the kind of the relief that you saw in his celebrations. You see what that goal meant to him, and that is just a great finish. He, again, similar to Brian Mbeumo, uses the defender as a shield and whips it around the defender into the bottom corner. Verbruggen doesn't stand a chance, in my opinion. And I just like what I've seen. But just quickly on that Brian Mbeumo goal that I mentioned, I think a lot of credit goes to Sesko. And during the game, I was tweeting saying, you know what, Man United need to get Sesko involved more in attacking build-up. For the first 20 or so minutes, there was a stat that came up on the screen that said he had no touches in the first 15-20 minutes. And I just felt like Man United were using him as this target man in the box, trying to play him between Van Hecken and Dunk, crossing the ball in, and he's dealing with three players at sometimes in the box, so he's not winning anything. He wasn't winning aerial duels. And then Manchester United diverted from that, and suddenly they had Sesko, and I'm glad they did this because I tweeted it. They had Sesko playing back to goal, but also getting him involved in the build-up. And one thing about, for me, Benjamin Sesko is he's not that typical number 9 where you kind of stick him and shove him in the box and just keep him out of the gameplay and then just cross the ball into him when you get into the final third. I think he's someone you can utilise in build-up because he's actually very good on the ball. For a player of his size, for his stature, for his quite lankiness, and, you know, he's quite long in his strides when he's running. He shouldn't be that good on the ball, but he is. And I think Manchester United probably realised that. I feel like as the team grew into the game, we realised, let's stop using Sesko as a target man and let's start getting him involved. And he did phenomenal, brilliantly, to kind of, suck the centre-back out of position that kind of caused a space to be vacated. And now, you know, the other centre-back he's torn. Do I go? Do I stay? Do I cover? Do I watch Brian Mbeumo's running? But he brings the centre-back out, takes the touch to kind of distance himself, and on the half turn, bam, plays the ball in behind to Brian Mbeumo, and it's a great assist. And this is why I said that as the front line kind of grows together and plays more together, I'm hoping that we will see a lot more of this. Like, I can't believe it, guys. I was saying, like, to myself during the game, like, raw. We actually ain't won 3 games on the bounce in a long, long time. I mean, as we speak right now, United are in top 4, but obviously that's could change depending on the remainder of the games to be played over the weekend. But equally, we're saying that for once we've got a positive goal difference, 3 games on the bounce, we've scored 4 goals, and we're slowly growing. That's what I wanted to see. I said, you know, coming off the back of the Liverpool game, that win at Anfield, it won't have meant as much if we lost to Brighton. And Brighton have beaten Manchester United 6 of the last 7 games. You know, since that Eric Ten Hag debut season, they've beaten us at home every year. So I was a bit skeptical to get excited and you know, kind of start saying, you know, we're back, United's back. For me, the most important thing is growing game by game, and I have to give credit to Ruben Amorim as well for that, because today I saw something that stuck out to me in the first half. Manchester United were playing in kind of rest defense or out of possession. We were playing like a 5-3-2 or a 5-4-1, and the wide centre backs, particularly Luke Shaw, De Ligt included, the central centre-back, was jumping out at the attackers in particular. You know, you had Luke Shaw jumping out at Ruta or Kadioglu, or, you know, Weaver, who's, you know, attacking as well from that right-hand side. And it was leaving space in behind. De Ligt doing the same thing, jumping out at Welbeck with Ruta running into the space behind. And as a result of that, I noticed something that Ruben Amorim did. Because of the fact that Brighton were kind of utilising those situations quite a few times, out of possession, Man United shifted to a 4-4-2. And that 4-4-2 was made up of Dalot at left back, you had Yoro at right back, you had Shaw De Ligt centre back pairing, you had Ahmad at right mid, you had Casemiro, Bruno, Cunha, and then you had Mbeumo, Sesko. 4-4-2. Simple. And Brighton really, I think, struggled to play around that. And I feel like that 4-4-2 allowed Manchester United in defensive transitions, especially kind of utilising that midfield. It allowed them to get forward. And that's why I say credit to Ruben Amorim, because again, Gary Neville during the game, around the 70th minute, he was saying, why is the manager taking off players? It's 3-0 up. He's made 3 substitutions. He's sending the wrong message by making all these changes, causing instability. I think Gary Neville was clutching at straws there, because I think Luke Shaw went down after Brian Mbeumo's goal, so you kind of had to take him off. I think that had to happen, because you don't want to risk, one of your 2 left-sided centre-backs getting an injury, and, you have to monitor his fitness. And then Dorgu coming on and Kobbie Mainoo coming on. Casemiro, again, playing 70 or so minutes. He came off, and then Dorgu came on. I think Ahmad coming off changed, I think, Manchester United's kind of trajectory. Again, similar to the Anfield game, United stopped attacking on the right-hand side as often and started utilising the left and the central spaces. But I also think that has something to do with Cunha, who was kind of retaining possession and dropping back a lot more into those central areas. But that's what I thought of the game, guys. 3 games on the bounce. It's only 2 more until that guy can cut his hair. I think United should let Ruben Amorim give him a trim if United actually win 5 games in a row. But listen, guys, let me know your thoughts. What do you think of the game? How you feeling? My man of the match, Mbeumo. Listen, by the way, I didn't even mention, shout out to Matthijs de Ligt. Matthijs de Ligt has been one of Manchester United's best players this season. Consistent. Mr. Consistent. Plays with different centre-back pairings every single time, a different backline every single time, and still drops minimum 7 out of 10. But listen, guys, let me know your thoughts on the game. Be sure to hit the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe as well if you are new here. 3 points, 3 on the bounce, positive goal difference, guys. Enjoy your weekend.